All right. Computational computational pipeline monitoring liquid pipelines. Pipeline segment API 1130, second edition, November 2002. All right, background information, introduction, regular, 0, background information, introduction, regular, consideration, 1, scope, purpose, content, scope, limitation, transportation systems, references, reference cited herein, other applicable reference definitions, 3, technical overview, methodology, selection criteria, commodity properties, 5, technical details, field instrument, SCADA, communication data presentation, 6, operational maintenance testing, CMP, operation system testing, operating issues, CMP system data retention, pipeline controller training, retraining, CPM documentation, appendix glossary, discussion of pipeline rupture definitions, appendix C, description of internal based CPM systems, and then figures. Alright, let's back out of this a little bit. Alright, computational pipeline monitoring liquid pipelines, background information, introduction, second edition API 1130, first edition 11 API 1130 was published in 1995. Since the time the user's information pipeline operators, system developers, system integrators, and the regulators had opportunities to employ information provided by the evaluate publication that offers suggested changes to improve the documentation. See publication API 1130 has reference to the Federal Pipeline Safety Regulation C 0.2 below. In addition, API requires API publication standards to be reconformed on a regular basis. Their second edition API 1130 has been modified to include suggested improvements rectifying inconsistencies and error. CPM, or computational pipeline monitoring, is a term that was developed to refer to algorithmic monitoring tools that use to enhance the abilities of pipeline controllers to recognize the hydraulic anomalies that have been indicated with the pipeline leak committee recently. In this past, computational pipeline monitoring systems have generally called leak detection systems. However, the pipe leak detection can be accomplished by various techniques of aerial, ground, patrol, third-party reports, inspection company staff, hydrocarbon detection centers, or SCADA, monitoring pipeline conditions of pipeline controller software-based monitoring. Consequently, the term computational pipeline monitoring was developed to specifically cover leak detection using algorithmic tools. The original API 1130 was written with the API Computational Pipeline Monitoring Task Force, which was formed in April 1994. The purpose of this group was to develop API Computational Pipeline monitoring used for the liquid pipeline industry. United this updated API 1130 with the 2002 has written with the task force API cybernetics subcommittee include but input all committee members as well as broad community computational pipeline monitoring system developers and system integrators. Alright, 0.2, regulatory consideration. Users API 1130 must be familiar with the regulations covered in the head liquid pipeline regulations apply with the municipal, state, federal levels. For example, the first A edition 1130 with the Department of Transportation Office of Pipeline Safety has included the API 1130 with the Title 49 CFR Part 195 regulations was likely to be subject to updating within the life of the second edition of API 1130, so the exact references are not included in this document, and regulation references may be directly with the computational pipeline monitoring may be used to leak detection aspect integrity management. A computational pipeline management and leak detection system must be mandated with a further regulation. Operational restriction reference may be indirect as regulatory requirements for closing of the remote valve, the activation flow of the restricted device. Computational pipeline may be used as one of the triggers for the activation, particularly with a high consequent area. Computational pipeline management systems must be employed when the requirements are state. A pipeline operator must have the means to detect leaks on its pipeline system. Pipeline operator must evaluate capability of leak detection means modify the necessary provide sufficient level of protection. A computational pipeline monitoring may be adjusted to account for the operational mode of the characteristic pipeline segment, including shutdown, ideal factors, and search for the length of the side of the pipeline, type of the product and carried, pipeline proximity, high consequence area, the swiftness, leak detection, location, near the response, personnel, pipeline, leak history, risk assessment results, and must be considered. The document provided with the guidance will help him with the addressing regulatory requirements that does not claim to be an all-inclusive in the regard of the pipeline operator will need to understand the regulations work with the regulators and the agents to satisfy all requirements. One scope, the publication focuses on the design and implementation testing of the computational pipeline monitoring system with the algorithmic approach with it to detect the hydraulic anomalies of the pipeline operating parameters. Primary purpose of the system is to provide tools that can assist the pipeline controllers in detecting commodity release air that are sensitive to the algorithmic intended computational pipeline monitoring system will provide with an alarm display other related the data with the pipeline controllers. Aided to the decision making, the pipeline controllers would be undertake the immediate investigation control for the reason of alarm, initiate the operational response for the hydraulic anomaly with the reps of the operational upset with the commodity release. The purpose of the publication to assist the pipeline operator identify that the issue result relevant to the selection, implementation, listing, and operation of the computational pipeline monitoring system. This document may be used in conjunction with the API publication application regulations. Part 1.2 Contents. The publication include the definitions for the reference concept of the acquisition, design, discussion of design, operation, pipeline with it related with the computational pipeline management field, documentation, computational pipeline monitoring, purpose of the all-on credit pipeline controller response incident, analyst record retention, maintenance systems testing, train consideration, setting alarm, limits of the attending, and the recommendation of the data, the presentation relationship between the pipeline controller and its computational and pipeline monitoring system is also discussed. 1.3 Scope limitation. The publication of limited to the single phase of the liquid pipeline for the recognized one particular methodology of the technology may be applicable to all pipelines because each of the pipeline is unique design operation in addition with a detectable limits are difficult to quantify because of the unique characteristics presented by each pipeline. Limits must be determined validated by system, or after the segment by segment basis. Figure B1 shows along with the discussion appendix B provided with a starting point with the understanding particular discussion limited with the commodity release start of the publication is not all inclusive. Readers must intimate knowledge of the pipeline when they have referred to the other publication of background additional information. Computational pipeline management intended use for the tool to be used for the pipeline control with the safety operation pipeline. Effectively, the operation pipeline required for the pipeline controller to be familiar with the pipeline and tools. If the disposed computational pipeline is not required to intend to replace the human judgment with the intervention shut down effective the pipeline segment with the closure remote control valve directing the field staff and then close the hand operated valves on the pipeline. Alright, this publication complements but does not replace other procedures of monitoring integrity of the pipeline computational pipeline monitoring systems as well with the commodity release detection technology has a detection threshold with commodity releases detection cannot be expected. The application of the information publication would not reduce the threshold with the commodity relief to be conducted. For example, the train pipeline control with the SCADA personnel or presented operating data with the be effective detecting certain size of the larger commodity release of the third-party reports. Pipeline patrols employ on-site examination can also be effective to produce to verify the integrity of the pipeline with their applicable range. Note, this publication is keeping the standard industry practices and common use technology. However, it is not intended to exclude other effective commodity release detection methods. Alright, 1.4 Transportation System. The publication is written by the liquid offshore, onshore, offshore trucking line system with the content would maybe be applicable pipeline systems like with the gathering system, production flow lines, marine vessel loading, unloading, terminal operation, computational pipeline technically may be applied with the steel pipeline systems, may be applied with the pipelines constructed with the other material with the PVC, polyethanol, fiberglass, concrete. Successful application of computational pipeline may be limited to the characteristics of the other materials. Pipeline system widely in physical characteristics, including diameter, length of the pipe, wall thickness, internal roughness, coefficient, pipe composition, complexity of the pipe network, pipeline topology, pump station configuration, instrument quality, accuracy, placement. These same pipelines can be also categorized by operation factors, show the flow rate, magnitude, frequency of the rate, and pressure fluctuation, blending and batch stripping schemes, product type, the viscosity, density, sonic viscosity, symbolic, modulus, vapor pressure, temperature, and heat transfer. The computational pipeline methodology selected must be evaluated against characteristics of the pipeline known. What is required for the methodology to provide acceptable result. Most computational pipeline monitoring technologies have not been far proven themselves capable of providing satisfactory computational pipeline monitoring operation during periodic permanent slack line conditions. If the condition exists on a particular pipe, the computational pipeline monitoring selecting criteria with the pipeline will need to consider the operation condition. Alright, 2 references. Reference cited here in the following standard code specifications cited herein. The American Petroleum Institute recommended practice 1149, pipeline variable uncertainty with their effective leak detectability 1155, the evaluation methodology software-based leak detection systems 1161, guidance document with qualification liquid pipeline personnel August 2000. 2.2 other applicable reference API recommended practice 1113, develop a pipeline supervisor control manual measurement standards, instrument and trends, CSA Z662 oil gas pipeline appendix M99E recommended practical leak detection. 49 code for regulation part 195 ISO 9000 quality management family standards and guidelines. 3 definition for all important words of the phrase is given in the publication list described in glossary appendix A. of the document. Alright, 4. Technical overview. The section discusses the general type of the computational pipeline methodology, provide the list of desirable computational pipeline features mentioned, important issue for the concern with the fluid transportation, SCADA, and computational pipeline management systems, present field data for the calculation information pipeline controller evaluate the take the appropriate action, the degree of the complexity, progress of the field data, the vary for the single comparison, particular parameter relative to the threshold limit, the more extensive the all analysis, multiple parameters within interlocking dynamic threshold for the all computational pipeline algorithms are based on certain design implementation assumptions, computation pipeline operation configuration uncertainties. Reach acceptable compromise between accuracy and speed of solution. The assumption that need not to be complete with a successful computation pipeline monitoring implementation method. Use the sensor directly and indirectly detect commodity release mix classified externally with the base and internally, respectively. 1411 externally based leak detection system publication does not consider the externally based pipeline detection system that operated on an algorithm principle physical detection of the escaping commodity. These system local detector sends alarm signal with the control center with the display and annunciation external based method conceive of the discussion computational pipeline method monitoring because they do not need the requirement performing computation field managers interfering with the commodity relief of the filing or common type with external based system and devices, fiber optic hydrocarbon sensing cable, dielectrical hydrocarbon sensing cable, acoustic emission cable, hydrocarbon and vapor sensor or gas sensors, including those of the vapor pickup tubes. 412 internally based computational pipeline monitoring system. Computational pipeline monitoring systems are internally based, utilize the field sensor output of the monitoring internal pipeline parameters. The particular methodology may use some of the all measured for the data such as the pressure, temperature, viscosity, density, flow, production, sonic velocity, product interface location. These inputs are used for inferring commodity relief of the manual electrical computation. A brief description of each of the computational pipeline methodologies is discussed in Appendix C, with the following describe the type of the computational pipeline internally based methodology: line-based, volume-based, modified volume-based, compensated mass balance, real-time transit model, pressure flow monitoring, acoustic negative pressure waves, statistical analysis. Each computational pipeline monitoring method has strength limitations. Example: the computational pipeline monitoring methods are more sensitive to measure repeatably drift with approach for the required extensive configuration and efforts to assume that no one technology has proven suitable for the all pipeline application. Computational pipeline monitoring systems that may be employed to provide with the computational pipeline monitoring broad cover pipeline operating condition. 4.2 selection criteria. Each of the computational pipeline methodology contains the different combination features for the varying degree of the capability, sophistications. Computational pipeline method and the monitoring performance is contingent with the interrelationship manufacturers such as the measuring capability, community, reliability, piping operation condition, product, the type of the use of the appropriate circumstances, commodity relief detection will benefit the employing multiple computational pipeline monitoring techniques on application validation or redundancy of the independent parameters used within the methodology or potential allow independent validation redundancy following a list of the computational pipeline monitoring features. The functionality computational pipeline monitoring features listed below are not in particular order, nor there is an attempt with a way with the importance of each of those. It must be noted that no one methodology particular application possesses all of the features. Certain features appropriate specific pipeline. A computational pipeline monitoring system must have at least one of the following features. Computational pipeline monitoring system may possess accurate commodity releasing alarm, possess high sensitivity commodity release, allow time detection of the commodity release, then require minimum software configuration and tuning, or perform computational pipeline monitoring functions with existing sensors. The instrument does not have the special additional requirements of the instrumentation, be a minimal impact to communication outages and data features. Accountability complex operation conditions be available during transit, be configurable with complex pipeline networks, perform an imbalance calculation of the meters of one instant in time, possess dynamic alarm thresholds, possess dynamic liquid packaging, consistent accommodate with the commodity blending, account for heat transfer, provide with the pipeline system real-time pressure profile, accommodate intermittent percent and slack conditions, allow avoiding alarms, not totally disabling all segments of the pipeline during a event, accommodate all types of liquid, identify leak by location appropriate to the milepost location in your station. Here have the ability to display pressure history vessel time versus time in each of the line pressure location along the pipeline, provide with the automatic manual data substitution during periods of non-availability, communication outages, measure failure, maintenance, etc. Provide compromised indication of the data attributed associated with the support field inputs, calculate the data, minimize the number of alarms requiring support, and preferably independent commodity release configuration, identify leak rate, accommodate commodity measurement, inventory composition, various correction factors, temperature, pressure, density, manufacturer provide batch tracking with the interface location, be able to complete bulk modes and perform inventory computation, perform calculation quickly view the data as if it becomes available. Validate commodity release alarm with a redundant analysis, same method of redundant analysis between methods that accommodate pump startups and shutdown valves, opening and closing other normal operating function without general alarms, accounting the effect of the drag reducing additive for efficient fuel of the control center with contain leakable probability analyzer weight of all the components of the leak and the leak line packing loss special low deviation measure storage. This is pipeline controller making a leak declaration possessive ability to allow the alarms to be integrated with the pipeline control alarm processing, possess audit trail of the computational pipeline monitoring actions taken by the pipeline controllers, allowing him to save that historical data, have ability to return normal detectable limits rapidly after the data of the computer service is restored after unscheduled interruption, have the ability to provide various types of warnings, alarms, example warming alarms to the data failure, unusual operation condition indicating the cause of the commodity release, provide an alarm under the operation conditions which will not be disabled or turned off automatically regardless of the circumstances, have the ability to automatically self-test effectively and performance testing underway. API publication 1155 can be consulted with additional detail of the computational pipeline monitoring performance criteria. All right, 4.3 commodity properties. Commodity properties must consider the computational pipeline monitoring methodology with the considered flow property with the employed with the methodologies work properly with the fluid liquid phase with the homogeneous mixed phase so that mathematically characterized typical Newton fluids will be compromised with the most crude oil with the refined product. The fluids may also be characterized with the density of the bulk molecules with the independent viscosity. Other fluids, such as the high paraffin crude oil, have heavy crude oils have the heavy viscosity existence of the Newton fluid character of the fluids may be mathematically represented by one U of the complex equation fluid within transit composition mixed fit situation. Then computational pipeline monitoring approach must be able to accommodate unusual commodity properties. High volatile liquids are in liquid phase with the temperature pressure insufficient to maintain the fluid above the critical point. High velocity volatile liquids are more compressible than crude oil, thereby making it more difficult for the computational pipeline monitoring approaches to discern the hydraulic anomalies in all pipeline operations. 5. Technical data aspect of the field hardware to discuss in the section sensor with an instrument. The data that must be sent by the field site with the computational pipeline monitoring. On the other use of the portion publication defined with a good operation practice for the design maintenance of the field instrumentation necessary adequate computational pipeline monitoring. API publication 1149 pipeline variable uncertainty that they are effective leak detectability. Discuss the importance of instrumentation pipeline computational pipeline monitoring performance of the software development providers may also divide the operator instrument influences capability of the computational pipeline monitoring methodology with the will effect for the upgraded instrumentation will of the other systems. Calculation API publication 1149 demonstrate the inadequate and inaccurate instrumentation review for the computational pipeline monitoring effectiveness calculation can be considered to determine what must cost effective improvements must be made. Such analysis may be used repeatedly over life of the pipeline system to achieve the incremental performance and improvement. Our selection instrument range of specifications should be carefully managed with the pipeline operating design, pressure flow, temperature, density, etc. to be sure to be used to make best use of the instrument manufacturer state of the accuracy linearity because the instrument accuracy generally stated in terms of the percent of the full range is small for the available range greater than the desired range preferred choice of the no value over specification instrument accuracy computational pipeline methodology performance will be limited instrumentation loop accuracy repeated with the resolution of SCADA system on such a limitation may be imposed with the resolution measured in bits analog to digital conversion hardware shown in the following table. Alright, 5.1.2 Installation Instrumentation. Quality instrument data with the computational pipeline management system. Instruments should be installed in accordance with the API recommended practice 550 manufacturer recommendation applicable in industry code and standards. Placement instrumentation its relation with the process equipment is important. Should be carefully designed with the consideration variations in operating condition. Pressure should be measured in a well away from the pump discharge turbulency. The tap off the side of the line. Avoid plugging in the segment. Flow of the strobe be measured in air with accurately to be measured, for example, the inferential meters location where there is well developed flow of the profile of the temperature must be taken in the location represented over the majority of the product of the line or will generate error with the greater result achieved without the input. The design of the instrumentation process of the pipeline instrument shall be located with the provision of the conventional testing calibration instrument minimum distribution pipeline operation API manual to measure pipe petroleum measurement standards for instrumentation. 5.13 Calibration of the maintenance of the computational pipeline management instrumentation. A computational pipeline monitoring system adequate instrumentation achieve the desired commodity relatively sensitive bay limited effectiveness instrument calibration drift the system receive the inaccurate data with the view of the inaccurate results. Instrumentation shall be calibrated in accordance with the manufacturer recommendation. Calibration shall be traceable with National Institute standard testing operating experience provide with the best determine an appropriate test for the recalibration fixed interval. The computational pipeline monitoring system that itself may be, in some cases, the best indication of the necessity to test and recalibrate the particular instrument for the random interval. To maximize the computational pipeline monitoring performance, each pipeline company should be prepared to test calibration plan with the computational pipeline monitoring operating and maintenance procedure of the plan should be recognized the importance of the computational pipeline monitoring system that safe operation pipeline provided with the property over the computational pipeline instrument repair. Note, such a plan could result in the instrumentation calibration practice that may be achieved with the requirements of applicable regulations. Testing and recalibration events should be documented with the record of the minimum included the day of the test. The initial person with performing the test and recalibrated records should be retained in accordance with each of the company's written procedure. The operational considers stored location of the records and so they are protected for the life of required retention. When developing maintenance history field instrument consideration should be given the records of the file as left for the calibration in accordance with the ISO 9000 conventions. Procedure should be developed and coordinated with the test of the recalibration field instrument pipeline control with the computational pipeline monitoring system personnel see recalibration manufacturer performance system. 517 the signal condition. Note noise is part of the signal receiver that does not represent the quantity of the being measured. The noise exists within some degree. All measured data of the noise may reduce the performance of computational pipeline monitoring. All means of may be employed to reduce mechanical, electrical sources of the noise instrument. For example, the instrument mount for the processing pipe should be designed to minimize the resonancy, electrical noise, and some of the wiring. Often it can be reduced through the shielding signal cables and proper grounding. When attempting to eliminate noise and successful signal condition techniques that may be within some type of the computational pipeline monitoring systems, limit bandwidth attenuation sound API recommended practice 1149 describe the digital low pass filter with effect of reducing noise through the improving leak sense of the under test condition. These filters may be contraindicated, particularly with the computational pipeline monitoring system. The excessive of the signal condition may remove the desired information signal. Signal condition techniques may also introduce time lag and changing data that may reduce effectiveness of the computational pipeline monitoring system. Alright, SCADA's communication supervisor control data acquisition system of the computer-based system. Communication system gather the process display with the control data is the field instrument section and focus on the design of the data gathering subsystem effect of the computational pipeline monitoring system. The computational pipeline monitoring system generally is gathered with the pipeline itself. Supervisor control the data acquisition system of the system of the gather independently with the automated computational pipeline monitoring system may interface directly with the supervisor control data and data acquisition system of the pipeline available to provide back to the supervisor control and data acquisition. Return alarm conditions. SCADA system of the alarm management utilities due to automatic transfer of the data is impossible. It makes it possible the computational pipeline monitoring system to analyze the data as much with the faster rate of the automation required that all necessary data available with the supervisor control data and data acquisition system on the server schedule can computer particular when needed. The following paragraphs describe the several of the SCADA system design factors that can affect the quality timelines that are required in computational pipeline monitoring system. Alright, 5.1 communication media detection. All data communication media may be either with the SCADA system, most common to me, either the liquid pipeline industry to dedicate the telephone circuit with fiber optic cable, the various one with the terrestrial radio microwave satellite based system. Media very qualified, but all subject to noise interference and cover the data corruption of the virtually all SCADA systems designed to detect, reject the corrupted messages. Data quality bits, sometimes called the data attributed, may often be available in the SCADA system and indicate loss of message. The other information about the data with the off-scan alarm inhibited, manually entered, etc., and should be within computational pipeline manner. Computational pipeline monitoring system and identified missing suspect of the computational data. 5.2 communication message structure. SCADA system gather the data of the field instrument via the data acquisition device for the remote terminal unit and programmable controller field data acquisition flow computer located at the field site. Each of the device with the interchange with the specific application data collection design with may include the data acquisition device of the interrogation, other data acquisition devices of the devices for information data is collected in one or more computers associated with the pipeline operator control center. Specification of the messages between the data acquisition device and the controller center computers are collectively referred to as the communication protocol. The protocol is to be pulled with the the control center with the computer with the data of the field location. Turn typically last field location has been pulled with communication polling will return to the first, repeating the cycle endlessly with the time interval required for the poll with all field location result of the first for the referred to as the poll time scan time. Data acquisition device always report for all data in the response to the poll system is said to be strictly polled on some of the SCADA system. The other polling algorithms are used to compensate the media speeds and loading and interleave, scan and demand scans, etc. The data acquisition device may fail with the report poll due to equipment failure, no, if the communication channel with the following conditions, sometimes called the no reply. This often is indicated with the SCADA system quality bits. And to improve the update rate of the slower communication channel that gave the efficiency of the communication with the channel, some protocol with a permanent field location to respond only with the data change within the sense of the previous poll. Such protocols are referred to as report by exception. Scanned by in a report by exception protocol may be varied depending on the system design operating condition of the pipeline. The SCADA communications may also be non-poll quiescent or unsolicited operation of the data acquisition device that reports without being polled, either time schedule based on when the field chain with the referred to 624 with the analog deadband with the distribution analog data chain with the design quiescent report expectation system must include the provision with control center with the computer with a pull the field location of the data set for the poll. You validate with the data with the image of the control center of the computer is called the integrity scan. 523 communication timing poll system. I have the variation reporting times of one field location to another time skew with the design with the computational pipeline monitoring system. I also consider the impact of the time skew with the data question systems over the reported data chain with the reporting by expectation protocols. I have no defined scan time with the age of the particular item of the data that may be in question of the deal with the situation the system which generate the time tag with either data acquisition device with the time data chain with the control center computer with the time the data receive the time tags may be either the computational pipeline monitoring system designed with the analyze the transit condition of the pipeline. Some SCADA systems are applicable to the capture of the installation instantaneous volumetric measurement that simultaneous to the location. The feature is usually called the accumulator feature of the data snapshot that effectively permits the volume data to be integrated at one reference time. The computational pipeline monitoring system is not equipped with the handle of time of the tags, but maybe even the method to eliminate time skew. 524 analog deadband. Measure of the variable with the instrument, typically with SCADA analog report by assumption protocol. Twist in the system, the reported chain to have sometimes permanent with the analog deadbands. Analog deadbands enable the value of the analog must change with more than deadband value because of that before the new value is reported. Analog deadbands are generally used to reduce traffic communication channel with flicker of the analog signal to appear with a validated change and data quiescent report by exemption. The deadbands, however, they introduce the noise level of the counterproductive, in particular the computational pipeline monitoring methodology. They analyze the flicker for pattern change, the precision of the SCADA system, and the analog to digital conversion hardware exists repeatedly sensors over the appropriate to reduce the pressure and precision through the use of the analog deadband. Care must be taken not to use excessive large analog deadband technique effectively reduce the precision analog value. Alright, 525, impact with the data collection. Computational pipeline monitoring system that may be implemented. Understanding underlying communication protocol is possible to have with the various communication protocol within the SCADA system. The unusual find with the multiple protocol layers that as subsequently complete with the transmission one field data method of the SCADA system and even the multiple protocols does not affect the update time. 526 data processing. Data with the receiver of the SCADA system is generally coded with the most compact manner possible with the maximum effective efficiency. The communication link with the SCADA data system and result of the data functioning of the SCADA system is responsible for converting data with the form suitable for the display with the use of the application of the computational pipeline management system. Recent design may be performed in the format of the data acquisition device of the second description of the data processing feature enabled to improve the computational pipeline management computational pipeline monitoring function. 5261 time tag. Time tag records particular data point at the last update. Sometimes generated the time tag with data acquisition device, but in more common the SCADA system control center of the computer would create the time tag at the time of the data, either the acquired process. Time tags preferably originate with the defensive acquisition data can be used with the computational pipeline monitoring system to reduce the effect of the time skew, but essentially with the accumulator values of the data, the freezing function is not available. Alright, 5262, data quality. Data quality information may be stored processed data with the typically data quality values of the effect of the computational pipeline monitoring include not updated with the old data cover the data acquisition device that is not responsible off-scan with the data acquisition device that has not taken offline manual data, which is manually entered with the data override with an integrated values range error with the analog value falls outside specified hardware limits. Alarm inhibited with alarm when the data is inhibited with alarm and even if the challenge typically even determine maintenance activities. Alright, your data quality reviews values maybe either the computational pipeline monitoring system have recognized compensate with suspected data on the SCADA system data quality bits, or maybe either reflect the result of the calculation operator action. Data is currently the specific type of alarm pipeline controller has not acknowledged that the alarm condition field point is currently part of the control, etc. 5263 analog processing. Analog values typically represent the measured values such that the pressure level rate must be can also represent items such as the tank level to review the analog value for the scale of the engineering units, pounds per square inch, parallels per hour, feet by analog process. The sum of the variables achieved with a particular computation pipeline monitoring system will also require secondary conversion obtained in the field of desired value, specific API gravity level of the volume, scaled final analog value for the usually compared with the predefined threshold value that directly values outside of the desired range. Operating emergency limit, the rate of change is and calculated with the defined over the change of the engineering unit value of the redefined time period. The question report exemption SCADA system. Some of the type of the smoothing algorithm intended independent scan time is usually needed to prevent on the calculation and unrealistic ROC or rate of change values with the computational pipeline monitoring approach. The computational pipeline monitoring systems generally rely on scanned analog values. 5264 status data records of the state of the item field of the equipment that status bears on and off the open code that can be stored with one binary digit or a bit called SCADA. Better bit permit with the configuration of the status of 2-bit forward state with a higher combination chain. The equipment is generally logged to a printer with a permanently recording device. Status processor for the status records are usually referred to as event log. Computational pipeline monitoring systems may need status information determine pipeline configuration. Often instant transit data are a result of the change of the equipment state. The event of the log may be a good source of information interpreting computational pipeline monitoring alarms. Accumulator process. The accumulator values represent the accumulated sum of the process quality since the start of the totalization process of the liquid pipeline SCADA system. Accumulators particularly with a record volumetric mass quantity passing with a given point of the accumulator value that either represent the gross net with a particularly netted value depending on the particular type of the device, data acquisition device use. Alarm processing. Alarms are special case if they include the transit unexpected abnormal state of the residence and return to transition normal state of the generally referred to as return to normal. Alarms can either be transitory or continuous in nature. For example, the field staff with the bit going for the alarm state of the analog see with the high limit. The wood example, the continuous alarm that have then complementary return to the normal state of the transitory alarms have no return to the normal state. They are simply with an indication of something has occurred. 2-minute warning prior to the batch arrival of the pig signal. The scraper has been passed. The station alarm's configuration triggered a laudable sound would acknowledge silence of the pipeline control. The pipeline controller may also require to acknowledge each alarm display with its system have the special summary that is related to the alarms, chronological alarm log files, unacknowledgeable alarm summaries of the point with the unusual state. Computational pipeline management system must be integrated with the SCADA system. The computational pipeline monitoring alarms process data are sent back with the SCADA and they are integrated with the standard SCADA display of the maintaining familiar method of data representation approach with the facility interpretation of the data with the pipeline controllers preferred with the configuration because it allows the pipeline controllers to view and analyze the computational pipeline monitoring data alarms conjunction with the SCADA activities and events. Alright, 5267 data history archiving. Computational pipeline monitoring system may store data values of the historical database SCADA systems and other application. Computational pipeline monitoring system may access the historical data. Playback and the capture and field data with the recall of later time, and the ability of the playback SCADA data is tough at the mode with a useful analyst for turning the computational pipeline monitoring system trained in its combination of historical playback data may be provided with the ability of some systems to recreate a series of events with the computational pipeline monitoring system. 5.3 data representation interpretation result of the manual computation pipeline monitoring system based on pipeline control training with therefore section primarily concerned with the presentation of the data from automated computational pipeline monitoring system. Data presentation capabilities very widely dependent on SCADA system computation pipeline monitoring system. The content of the section intended with the pipeline company would achieve the best of the possible result of the existing system. Each presentation of the operating computational pipeline monitoring data will be enable the pipeline controller to more easily identify the interpreting hydraulic anomalies. Alright, 5.3.1 display ergonomics. A computational pipeline monitoring integrator should be carefully consider the aspect of the display of the computational pipeline monitoring system alarms. The user consideration should include the following display needed to be a simple, easy read, representative of the uncomplicated screen arrangement. If possible, the computational pipeline management monitoring display should have the same with the format, the functionality of the SCADA display usage familiar with the pipeline controller, but the display should also be clearly differentiated with the pipeline controller well known with the SCADA and computational pipeline monitoring display. view when simulation train with the pipeline controller with the train with the simulation system displays view the same with the online controller system display with the pipeline controller familiar with the format. The CRT should have the position manner of the causing body and eye strain. Important consult of the user during the design of the computational pipeline monitoring system. The pipeline controller satisfied layout design. Control center with the multiple console of the pipeline computational pipeline monitoring display with a have similar each of the pipeline computational pipeline monitoring integrators should have to consider the industrial standards of the industry of other industry that may use the control of the display. Research that suggests that the approach of the make of the control display appropriate level of the urgency of the information displayed. Display should be limited in the number of colors. The display should be designed to work well with the parameter of the computational pipeline monitoring methodology. For example, the uppercase letter that may be readable with some screen with the application. Also, information display should be easy to read on the specific display equipment that controller is using. The screensaver should not be used with the other effective over the same cathode. CRT should be made to take from the prevent interference with monitoring of the computational pipeline monitoring system. Alright, 532 trend. Trending operating parameters of the flow rate, pressure, viscosity, density, overshort temperature from the SCOT system, and may help determine computational pipeline monitoring trending and employ with the need to cover the long enduring duration, save that of the provider of the computational pipeline monitoring occurred right through the time of the alarm ends with the current time of the analog value of the troubleshooting alarm with the computational pipeline monitoring. Because the analog device cannot always give all the information needed to take the correct leak declaration tabular trend, but not easy to analyze with a graphic trend that still effectively want to display historical data. 533 alarm displays. Computational pipeline monitoring alarm should be considered the SCOT system. And alarm should be have an appropriate priority. Alarm should have the audible tone carrier. Can be varied different with the categories. Alarm should be different color with a different category of the alarm. With acknowledged with the understanding alarm with the available pipeline control with the several steps with the alarm timestamp should be part of the alarm and with the display of the alarm should be presented with both audible visual alarms presented in such a way that they're specific the period of time, especially not overwritten, irrevocable new alarms. Acknowledge alarms that are still in alarm should be remain readable, available. The pipeline controller provision should be made again for the alarm easily with the defeatedly inhibited without just cut off the use of the screensaver. The other blanking is strongly discouraged. 534 integration computational pipeline monitoring in SCOT system. Display of the computational monitoring in SCOT system should be preferably integrated to put on the same alarm to display the computational pipeline monitoring SCOT systems cannot be integrated with the computational pipeline. Alarm should be displayed so the readily noticed in case the alarm should be logged or retained. Not integrated systems should provide an event with alarm retention. Computational pipeline monitoring display data should be easily accessible. Pipeline controller to aid the operation of the computational pipeline monitoring system along with the SCOT system. Hardware design should provide sufficient resource for either organization display with a provided sufficient CRT to display the need of the information analyzing alarm. 6. Operation, maintenance, and testing. Alright, testing. Alright, testing. Alright, Chapter 6, Operation, Maintenance, Testing, Computational Pipeline Monitoring Operations. Computational Pipeline Operation Systems employ interface engineering algorithm to define the given pipeline instrument data, the configuration data, product accounting data, the interference engine, maybe hydraulic calculations, maybe they calculate the data for the pipeline parameters. All of the alert algorithm considers and interferes with the data, but no actual data will issue the alarm. The limit is exceed the mass conservation algorithm. Statistical algorithm define limited in context. The computational pipeline monitoring alarm is automated with a manual signal. The presentation data concerned with the unusual event. Emergency event with the pipeline control view with the SCOT system, pipeline controller interface with the separate with the interface manual tabulation. Chief of the alarm could be triggered by many couplets that include the equipment of the data with the failure, unusual operating condition, the commodity release into the potential of the alarm information, and identify the condition need of the detention for the commodity with the relief of the company perceived with the should require the computational pipeline alarms should be evaluated. Similar understanding cover the alarm condition monitoring pipeline may not be ends of the alarm evaluation. 6.1 Alarm credibility. Alarm credibility may be enhanced occurring with a certain number of the non-leak alarms pipeline control of the computational pipeline monitoring system is functioning except for the number of alarms to track the credibility may create the compliancy. Computational pipeline monitoring systems designed with the goal of maximizing the system sensitivity to leaks, to find all the leaks of the system threshold with a minimum of the current leak declaration of the until the algorithm computational pipeline methodology indicates high probability presence for the actual commodity release. Type of computational pipeline monitoring alarms. In publication, computational pipeline monitoring alarms are subdivided into 3 categories: data failure, unusual operating condition, and possibility commodity release. Ideally, the categorization alarm of one of these 3 causes of the may will be made computational pipeline monitoring system. Many of the computational pipeline monitoring systems provide just one type of alarm. In the case of the determination of the cause, maybe the person evaluates the alarm with the pipeline controller, perhaps jointly with the computational pipeline monitoring system for person. Separate piece of the software expert system that provides the cover the probability of the cause and automated alarm cause the evaluation of the cover the desirable computation pipeline monitoring system feature. Operational response. The computational pipeline monitoring system would normally include the following investigation called the initiation of action, likely following procedure shutdown of the pipeline base for the pipeline controller design, automatic shutdown of the pipeline close within loop control, data failure for the cause of the last for the alarm would occur with the computational pipeline input data for the missing determined incorrect for the maybe also be called the system impaired alarms often include this alarm may also be the alarm that will when computational pipeline monitoring system fail. For the example of the missing input, the data of the communication failure, the meter or location example. The incorrect data would be the present instrument consistently reports value with a non-hydraulic relation to the other pressure of the flow of data of the pipeline. In this case, the instrument may be out of calibration located at the fixed value of the instrument may be presented with the type of the data of the failures. The alarms could be automatically generated with the SCADA computational pipeline monitoring software, manual entrance and pipeline line controller shift log with the computational pipeline monitoring system indicate the effect of the data failure with the continue with the computational pipeline monitoring operation. Effect of the severe degradation of the computational pipeline monitoring release detection threshold of the computational pipeline monitoring failure. The effect would be told off of the leak detection type identified to failure of the one of the series of the measured calculation data point is not triggered with the leak declaration. Ideally internal with the computational pipeline monitoring analysis utility should be able to identify the data failures alert with the pipeline controller where the problem exists. These other computational pipeline monitoring alarms may need to be present with the pipeline controller in a way that will clearly identify the alarm distinct with the SCADA alarm. The procedure of the pipeline control will be followed under the situation would be defined with the individual pipeline company with a particular computational pipeline monitoring. Unusual operation condition. The class of the alarm may be generated with the data set for the outside normal operating range. If the failure of the data failure condition data does not meet over the test for the possible commodity relief of these alarms may also be covered the diagnostic alarm. The class of the alarm intended to provide a second diagnostic condition between normal pipeline operation possibility, commodity release leak declaration, and alert with the algorithm subsection computational pipeline monitoring cannot determine the certainty level of the commodity release situation does not exist. Some computational pipeline monitoring system must declare unusual operating condition alarm. The purpose of the alarm lasts to minimize the incorrectly with the declaration. The unusual operation condition alarm would notify the pipeline controller of the problem and require the immediate investigation. For example, the type of alarm would be occurred during the slack line, the common separation of the pipeline seldom experiences this condition during unstable severe transit hydraulic conditions created by emergency shutdown. The procedures of the pipeline controller would follow under the situation when defined by the individual pipeline company with the computational pipeline monitoring operation. Unusual operation condition alarm may apply with the data with the pipeline controller to aid the situation analysis. These other computational pipeline monitoring alarms need to be presented with the pipeline controller in a way that clearly identified with the alarm distinct with the SCADA alarm. Continued refinement area that represent the significant technology challenge, ultimately reduce the numbers of alarm classes along with the computational pipeline monitoring system properly classify most of the more alarms of the failure proper possible commodity releases. Possible commodity release of the computational pipeline monitoring indicate the possible commodity relief of the alarm should be generated the computational pipeline monitoring system and must give the final determination whether the alarm to indicate the commodity relief will be made with the pipeline controller use of the computational pipeline monitoring output possibility. Other information sources of the SCADA system and code with the loop of the control may be powerful with some of the pipelines if the computational pipeline monitoring system automatically initiated the shutdown of the pipeline. Or the operational of the response to the possible commodity relief of the alarm need to be considered with the factor all computational pipeline monitoring alarms have the computational pipeline monitoring alarms probabilistically needed sufficient light with a current with a sensitivity threshold. Prior instance of alarm caused by the useful guide with the alarm evaluation. Every alarm should be evaluated individually. Assumption of the previous call was not to be really. Alright, 6.2 system testing. The testing of the computational pipeline monitoring system evaluate the actual system performance, provide the baseline to achieve the performance of the computational pipeline monitoring. Baseline may be established testing operating experience for the offline modeling API recommended practice 1149, 11455, and other theoretical and analyze the computational pipeline monitoring pipeline fit with the second section outlined with the testing method intervals. The primary purpose of the testing the computational pipeline monitoring will alarm with the commodity release occur for the purpose of the testing to make with the true of the data failure for the unusual operation conditional alarms functions are expected. Test with each alpha to discover the computational pipeline monitoring testing other than commodity release alarm. The testing may also continue the occurrence of the alarm to see the transition of the alarm stack back to normal state. Prior testing of the carefully plan with a conservative reason for the test method that may be employed with the process procedure that will be followed. The test should be managed to make sure they achieve the desired result. Consideration should be given the potential to reduce the pipeline during computational pipeline monitoring system testing. The pipeline control should be alerted with the possibility of extra commodity relief that could occur with the simultaneous of the computational pipeline monitoring test system test that actually commodity relief disguise or misdiagnosed during the testing interval. Alright, 621 testing method. The computational pipeline monitoring system should be tested with the alarm state with the actual system inlay with the commodity removal. And the test method of testing of the premise should be represented with the online operating condition. Possible method of testing include but not limited to the following: removal of the test quantity with the commodity with the line, editing with the computational pipeline monitoring configuration parameter, simulate with its commodity loft software simulation of the desired hydraulic condition, alerting instrument output with the meteor factor of the simulate with the volumetric imbalance pressure output with the simulate the hydraulic anomaly representing the leak. Other means capable of testing performance of the computational pipeline monitoring system. Or the method they're using should be specifically particular with the computational pipeline monitoring application pipeline system. Computational pipeline monitoring test may be announced with unannounced and announced testing begins awareness of the pipeline controller testing, unless the computational pipeline monitoring system unannounced testing begins with the knowledge of the pipeline controller testing. Computational pipeline monitoring system as well as the response of the pipeline controller. Generally, unannounced testing are used only when the performance of the computational pipeline monitoring system has established previous successful announced test, which the test that conducted only with the first test can be unannounced. Location of the test may vary with the one test of the next. For the computational pipeline monitoring system experience will leave with the various location that increase the confidence of the capability of the computational pipeline monitoring system. The test may be performed at more one withdrawal with simulated with withdrawal rate, with over the time and leak rate, with over the computational pipeline monitoring will be evaluated over the range of possible leaks. Alright, 622 initial testing during computational monitoring commissioning. A new computational pipeline monitoring system must be tested to verify that they achieve the design expected performance established baseline forms. The reason for the testing of the new computational pipeline monitoring application different, but for the retesting outlined below through the installation commissioning procedure, there may be a number of the varieties of tests that would test the available the computational pipeline monitoring system function under the variety of operating conditions that are indicated for the line operation. Initial testing may be simulated with the commodity release. This is kind of serialization may give the testing actual removal of the commodity with the pipeline with the final system test to cover the final testing prior to acceptance will establish baseline. Subsequent computational pipeline monitoring implementation, similar pipelines employed with the same computational pipeline methodologies may be used. The different initial testing methods make it take advantage of computational pipeline monitoring work. Testing and other pipelines initial computational pipeline monitoring may be rigorous and may be planned with the execute the good engineering technical judgment. Alright. Issues such as the test method employed with the commodity loss rate of the situation simulated. Retesting. Computation pipeline monitoring system retesting application for the necessary with a periodic basis for the new meet regulation conform with the continued effectiveness of the computation pipeline monitoring. Reestablish computation pipeline monitoring of performance after significant change that have been made with existing computational pipeline monitoring application with the pipeline configuration. Retesting the document with the test records. Computational pipeline monitoring application should be tested every 5-year interval. The more frequently significant change that have to be made with the computational pipeline segment, if there is change with the regulation with the requiring test configuring of the computational pipeline, continue the effectiveness may be unnecessary to test each of the pipelines if even the computational pipeline monitoring application for the consideration may give it the rotation testing pipeline varying the location of the test. The one test for the next for the retest may be even the same method employed with the initial testing may be used on another test method. Operationally, even the computational pipeline successfully detection and commodity release may be the acceptable substitute. Periodic testing with a demonstration for the continued effectiveness for the computational pipeline monitoring, a successful identification actual commodity release, but in production computational pipeline monitoring should be considered the sufficient retesting with a 5-year retesting interval. Subsequent tests must be rigorous with the initial testing that chamber that have been made with the pipeline computational pipeline monitoring during retesting interval. Retesting for test only. 6. Maintenance testing. Maintenance testing is a type of the computational pipeline monitoring retesting, but before different purposes of the outline. Maintenance testing may be performed on more frequent basis than retesting. This could be many reasons for the perform maintenance on the operation computational pipeline monitoring. For example, 3 out of the 1 hour of the life of the computational pipeline monitoring is example of the reconfiguration. Computational pipeline monitoring software, pipeline systems, cost system, computational pipeline monitoring software configuration, chain with the instrument, chain with any other change with the other than the degree with the may concern with the chain with the effect of the computational pipeline monitoring system performance. Among these may be retesting following minor tune chain with the installation of the new software, release of the event rerun testing of the of the computational pipeline monitoring response to unusual operating conditions. The decision to perform the maintenance testing will be based on the individual analysis, possible effect of the performance of the line basis. If the maintenance testing will be included as part of the change management, maintenance testing must be employed actually with the combined with the data sheet of the data set from the leak test and the testing simulation for the person responsible for the computational pipeline monitoring. Determine the method that's situated with the maintenance test for the computational pipeline monitoring system. The result of the maintenance testing may not be recorded in test record. However, the maintenance test is documented in accordance with 626 of the such maintenance test may be considered the retest and will set the start of the new testing interval. Alright, 625 computational pipeline monitoring system to help the test. And the computational pipeline monitoring system may be capable of running a self-diagnostic scheduled basis. The diagnostic may manner the help of the computational pipeline monitoring system and may create the computational pipeline alarms. Desirable system feature of the disruptive effect of the alarms and pipeline controllers can be minimized with the computational pipeline monitoring system itself. It does not meet with the criteria with the retesting and maintenance testing. Alright, 626 test records. Records detailing the reach of the test parameter methodology. Test results should be recorded with the retailing with the initial test, the retest, the detail of the least two previous tests should be retained. Detail with any of the actual combined relief event with consideration retest should be retained. At least part of the two previous tests of the pipeline company operator policy will dictate the requirements of the documentation test of the consideration. The information included the test records include date, time, the duration of the test, the technical reason of the test, the documentation review, the test, the performed with the methodology, particular parameter, have chosen the method, location, description combined with the withdrawal of the use, operation condition of the time of the test, detail of the alarm generated during the test, analyzing performance of the computational pipeline monitoring system for the unannounced test of effectiveness for the response of the operational personnel, documentation corrective measures and taken and mitigated as a result of the test. 6.3 operating issue for operation computational pipeline monitoring system. Following issues need to be considered. 6.3.1 security provision should be made with the limitation operation maintenance access with the chain of the SCADA and the computation pipeline monitoring system logic solver of the other sensors and access performance protection in any of the form of the password lock cabinets read only with the protective write down data of the administrator of the procedure. The access protection may have the varying levels of the accessibility different use of the system design technician pipeline controllers. Provision should be made again if any alarm parameters sent for the inhibited without just call the access controller should be made and provided with the combination application logic password with the computation CPM user interface data with the parameter alarm inhibited limited with the interface degree with the perform with the CPM function. System changes is made of several ways with the change to be coordinated with the otherwise managed with example segregating degree of the change with the multiple levels of the accessibility. Any changes should be audited if the chamber is not going online active until the validation complete. The parameter function is required validation after the chamber that should not be immediately incorporated with the online production. Instead, it should be accessible to test only if the offline mode is possible. And all the trails should be maintained with include the date and the time parameter, original setting, new setting, person performing the change alarms, operators initiated commands and events with parts of the record data retention may be stored in a hard copy read-only format. Read-only files should be protected from loss for the unauthorized tampering. Operating companies should be developed and implement revisions, release policy with the software from our using like CPM. Alright, 6.3.2 parameter chain with the consideration may give it the pipeline parameter control with the chain the parameter of the important day-to-day shift of the specific operation system design within the provisions allow the controller to modify, adjust the parameters of fixed boundary changes of the pipeline control with along with the term the operation of the computer pipeline management pipeline monitoring system should not be allowed, but the ability to make with the CPM system boundary should be accessibly authorized personnel under the control of the appropriate written procedure for the such change that should be recorded in either automatic log or in a shift log. Pipe system maintenance activity pipeline controller should be informed with the indication with the CPM system sensor inhibited and disabled. The indications show that the system that operate with the degraded mode that may include with the sensor calibration problem, the communication problem, software and failures. The indication would identify that it could be SCADA system and other gathering data to go with the CPM system provisions should be made to minimize effect of the maintenance capability performance of the CPM chain with the hardware software in the field equipment maintenance system upgrades. Or system maintenance should be performed with the control of the maintenance procedure to address the effect of the system maintenance with the CPM for performing the procedure may address the communication requirement of the maintenance personnel and the pipeline controller. 6.4 CPM system data retention. The retention of the data reports to CPM may be governed by several factors, including requirements of regulation, legal requirements, engineering, operation requirements, pipeline controller training requirements, favorable consideration should be retained over the above the required regulations. Recommended consideration should be included with the sort of data information may be useful helpful in the future. For example, data set with leak tests can be used in the CPM performance after changes have been made to the system, indicate that all occurrences of a leak declaration historically documented to cover the assessment of the pipeline controller response. Alright, 6.5, pipe controller training and retaining. The user of CPM system pipe controllers, any of the CPM support staff require the CPM training. CPM alarms may be most complex types of alarm experience for the pipeline controls. Such training and references material that necessary to prepare pipeline control with the adequate recognized response. These alarms require both knowledgeable perspective alarms themselves as well as the nature of alarms. The American Petroleum Institute has created a recommended practice for the controller training that was considered many of the interpreted important related training issues outside of the scope of the publication. Training plans must include periodic reviews of the pipeline controller training material to make sure that it's up to date. Retraining of the control pipeline testing, retaining of the may be aided by reviewing known cases where the unusual operation conditions alarm possible commodity release alarms have been generated. Documentation of these alarms will assist in the activity. Following technical alarms, technical areas must be considered only as related with the computational pipeline monitoring system. Hydraulics. The pipeline controller must be trained in the basic concept of the pipeline. If state with the hydraulics state of the computational pipeline system gradually change the line. Hydraulics do the movement of the different fluid batch of the temperature chamber. For example, the part of the controller's education pipeline controller was be trained to recognize the effect of the pump to start the shutdown with a very valve of the operation switch of the everyday of the activity intrinsic conditions that will cover the system flow with the transfer transit they appear with therefore potential to be a problem with the CPM alarm notification every day with the pipeline transit may cover the CPM system that cannot accommodate with transit subset with the may cause the operating alarm to within the realm of the normal system behavior. Alarming performance pipeline controllers should be recognized that they react with all the CPM related SCADA alarms, communication outages, and some of the SCADA alarms in the CPM system performance. Pipeline controller should be able to identify the effect of the instrument failure with the CPM of the pipe controller should be trying to link with the alarm and event with the concept of the CPM may be impaired. Our validation of CPM alarms, evaluation of CPM system operation condition necessary validating, explain with the cover of the CPM alarm pipeline controller should be trained to recognize the react with the unusual operation condition, take an appropriate action. Training may be directed toward the following: proceed the call on in and working the external resource alarm evaluation, inventory control. Line. The pipeline controller should be trained with the reckoning of the CPM hydraulic changes to do the varying line packet, the fundamental spectrum of the inventory channel, control for the calculation of mass comparison of the net barrels, various net barrels out of the train would be included the ability to recognize the packing behavior of the pipeline they operate. The pipeline controller should be knowledgeable about the section of the pipeline suspect the intermittent slack line with the flow of the controller should be knowledgeable about how the condition of the CPM performance training of the pipeline controller should be recognized the training and analysis of certain pipeline variable to provide a simple the CPM system with the training data can be presented with graphically and may be presented with tabular data, but the historical data graphic output may provide the best visual history of the CPM parameter. The control should be able to cross-correlation with the CPM out of the SCADA output with whenever possible the independent conforming the data with the CPM of alarm evaluation. Alright, your CPM system operation of the pipeline controller must be trained to understand the CPM system concept of the operation portion of the pipeline controller may be included with a periodic view of the CPM system and the training environment. And the training may cover the variations of the various kind of CPM system, even the control center, and unique aspect of the application applied to the individual pipeline controller must be trained to interpret the alarm correctly, time and the manner work for the internal and external source of the resource to evaluate the alarm CPM system should be implemented so that the alarms are readily recognizable. Data presentation pipeline controllers may be trained with the recognition of the CPM notification alarm may be trained with the research for the call of alarm data failure, unusual operating condition, possible commodity relief, the method of the correlation. Alarm and the independent data of the control roller will purpose of the appropriate response of the presentation CPM alarm data with the crucial components such as the training probability leak description of the location leak declaration abnormal function pipeline controller must be trained to react with the abnormal function CPM system same way they being trained to react for the abnormal function SCADA system the loss of the either of the elicit certain predefined action with the intent to preserve the pipeline integrity targeted with the response actions that should be thoroughly analyzed with the scripted and prompt efficiency action. Other leak detection pipeline controllers should be trained with employed with the result of the other methodology detecting leaks and the third-party reports of the CPM system not considered only means of detection leak. The controller should know the procedure of following other methods or CPM documentation. Each of the computational pipeline monitoring systems employed with the pipeline segment should be fully described in the documentation readily available to the reference user and these employed with the responsible maintenance support of the computational pipeline monitoring system recommended with the following information available: general information usable for the part of the normal control center, information system mapping, profile, detailed physical description, each of the pipeline segment, summary of the characteristics, each of the pipe products, transport of CPM specific information, tabulation, input of the CPM, perceived of each pipeline segment, the general description of CPM outline, principle of operation, list of specials, consideration, step-by-step procedure using CPM result of the system with alarm evaluation, on-call support phone numbers of the system implemented, details expected performance leak detection system, normal line upset conditions, and the effect of those system degradation leak detection result, CPM pipeline, controller training manuals, information, CPM alarm threshold, various applications. All right, then you have Appendix A is the glossary. That's not really needed. And then discussion on pipeline rupture, definition, and then description of types of internal-based CPM systems. And this was actually a reading of your computational pipeline monitoring liquid pipelines for liquid pipelines API 1130.